Alright, so this is going to be a sped up walkthrough of a pet portrait I did recently using this reference photo. Some of the brushes I used for this were a large flat brush, a medium flat brush, a round tip brush, a detail brush, and a fan brush. After getting my pencil sketch on the canvas, I added a watered down base layer. This will help the other layers of paint stick to the canvas better, help the colors pop, and in this case serve as a base for the skin tone beneath all the hair, which is why I chose this pink. Then using a paper towel, I remove bits where the brightest areas will be. Starting with the flat brush, I start lightly blocking out the darkest areas of the painting and continue blocking out areas from dark to light since I plan to layer the hair over all of this later. I like to trust what colors my eyes see in the reference photo while mixing my colors with similar tones to create unison between them while just continuing to work from dark to light. When my attention span runs out or I get burnt out working in an area for too long, I just jump to other areas of the painting just to give myself a fresh look, which is why I started doing the background tones here, but it also helps to isolate the main subject for better focus. Now switching to some of the brighter parts of the painting, for realism I don't start with white for teeth. No one has pure white teeth, no matter how good your dental routine is. Then I start working up the raised areas of the face, or the ones that are closest to the light. Then back to some of the darker areas like the eyes and the mouth. Here I'm using a mid-tone for these areas to connect later between the light and the dark areas, doing a little bit of the fur and also bringing out the flesh tones beneath the hair. Here I'm just switching back and forth to refine all the areas of shadow and highlights that I see that aren't white, since those areas will be harder to work on whenever we start adding the white hair on top of it. A lot of the footage in this part was unusable because of my big ol' head being in the way, but I was just using white to start outlining the brightest areas and detailing the hair with a fine tip brush. Just trust your reference image and follow the contours of the face when directing your brush strokes. This will help create the form of the face without needing hard lines, in conjunction with the layers of shading and highlights we added earlier. This part was very tedious, but as you will see later in this video, it would have been a lot better for me using the fan brush for this part. It does work perfectly for these fine hairs and it's a much quicker application. This is actually my first acrylic realistic animal portrait, so lesson learned. Definitely for the next time, the right tools can make a huge difference. Then when going back to the eye, just using various mixed tones of dark browns and using that same tone in other dark areas of the face and the ball. Then working up the reds all the way to the highlights on the ball. And after this, for most of the remainder of the painting, I'm just using a flat brush to continue working up my dark and light tones, just building them up slowly. Here I start bringing in a peach tone for the parts of the skin that are more exposed, or ones that would have been hit by the sun more. And this is where the epiphany moment came of using the fan brush for the hair. Definitely would recommend for animal hair just using a small amount of paint and with light pressure. Adding brighter blues for the background highlights and adding details to the collar using similar blue. Using a detailed brush, then reinforcing the black areas while I'm using it for the collar. For some of the final steps, I'm just fixing the proportions, like for the nose and the mouth, now that the background is laid out. And then final touches using various grays for the highlights on the darkest areas. And just dabbing in midtones from the skin and areas of the nose and mouth to blend those dark areas with the light areas. After some final touches and a couple layers of varnish, which I don't really have a preference for. I'm still messing around with different types, so use what works for you. That is it. This piece was really fun to work on as my first pet portrait, so I appreciate you taking the time to watch if you made it this far. Be sure to share, like, or subscribe for more. Thanks for the support.